You guys, after watching a painful 90-minute podcast between two rather bizarre ladies that was almost exclusively fluff and patting each other, mostly the Meg, on the back, there's really only three big takeaways from Meghan Markle's appearance on the Kern Lima show, this podcast, this sort of obscure podcast. First, the Meg needs new material desperately. There is a lot of recycled stuff throughout here, which isn't a surprise because whenever Meg is given an opportunity, it's immediately squashed by her narcissism because she cannot bear to talk about anyone but herself nonstop. Second, there's one big difference between people who are well-known or famous public figures, whatever, who become loved by the public and are generally popular versus those who end up incredibly unpopular and are not adored. And that is the self-aggrandizing, oversharing, hyping oneself up, patting yourself on the back, disingenuous nonsense that the Meg and Harry do all the time. And then they wonder why people don't like them. Third takeaway, Kern Lima is the source material for the Meg's new character debuted in 2025. Hi everybody, I'm Beebs Kelley. Welcome back to another video. Today we're going to break down this podcast. But first, let's discuss this sort of character trait mooching that the Meg is known to do. I now understand, after this podcast experience, which was crazy, corner of the internet, I now understand what sort of celebrity the Meg is going for at the moment. She is going for this inspirational self-love sort of a vibe, I believe. Let me explain. As fleeting as it surely will be, remember, we've talked about Meghan Markle's various personas in our Eras tour video. I will link it for you up here and in the description box. Basically, Meghan has a tendency to sort of create a character for herself in a way that she then sort of tries on for a while. She tries to sell it for a while before she drops it like a hot potato and moves on to the next thing. Many liken it to narcissistic mirroring, where for various reasons, usually manipulative motives, a narcissistic person or somebody really high in those sorts of traits sort of takes on traits of someone around them or somebody that they perceive to have what they want or to try to get something specific from that person, like a means to an end sort of a thing. Like, for example, the Diana copying. I did a video covering her history of copying Princess Diana. I will link that for you as well. You could take a look to see what that's all about. But that sort of a thing of copying Diana really seems to fall into this category of a means to an end. She did that to try to lure Harry or gain more control of Harry. Who knows? It was obviously something to do with Harry. Other times it feels like the Meg's mirroring is simply rooted in insecurity or even lack of social acumen because she doesn't have a strong sense of self and hasn't really developed her own identity. She has a habit of pulling traits from those around her and mirroring them because she erroneously thinks it's a shortcut to bonding with someone, or it could be something else entirely, something more nefarious perhaps. No matter, it's clear that she has this pattern of trying to sell a very specific image, and this year we have seen the Meg trying out this CEO, entrepreneur, working mom thing, as well as alongside, mixed up with, this I'm super kind, super thoughtful, hostess extraordinaire, everybody has such great friends of mine here, and we're all just this little love fest sort of a vibe. She's trying to sell that at the same time, this uber kind and thoughtful. Remember, at the Time 100 Summit, I'll link that video for you here. Well, there's two of them. I'll link them for you. She talked about how her self-care is taking care of other people. Okay, yeah, I don't think she understands the concept of self-care. But after seeing this Kern Lima podcast travesty, I understand what she's really going for at the moment. Jamie, once upon a time, was a little bit more normal. So I'm not sure if it was the millions of dollars from her successful cosmetics line or just a shift in vibe. But now she's in this really narrow niche of fiercely religious, inspirational self-development. That's where she operates right now. She is a very successful lady. In fact, I remember seeing her on TV during the Miss USA pageant in 2000s. I was into pageants. I did a few pageants. I'm pretty positive I remember seeing her compete that year. But anywho, she went on to be a newscaster before launching IT Cosmetics and became well known, like culturally, for her QVC appearance where she dramatically would wipe away her makeup to prove the coverage was full. Which was genius marketing for a foundation, by the way. It hadn't been done before really at the time, and it worked. It really helped make IT Cosmetics successful. But since then, she has migrated towards writing books with a sort of self-help, inspirational vibe to them that's kind of oriented in that self-development and inspirational category or genre. And she's also really, really open about her Christian beliefs. She sort of advocates for it, I guess. Like she talks about a Christian TV network. I think it's called TBN or something like that. She really talks about that a lot. So I guess you could say she sort of is also in the genre of faith or religious books and like podcasting. I had to look up the TBN thing that she had referenced a few times. It's a religious TV network, and that really does explain a lot about this podcast and its intro and stuff. It's like totally in that vibe. And so it's clear that she's operating in this space of positivity and faith and self-help, self-love, stuff like that, which is totally fine. That's not where I'm going with this. I'm not criticizing that tangent. She speaks in this sort of permanent uplifting, over-the-top sweet tone of voice and cadence where she plugs her books, and her vibe is this positive, supportive big sister who wants to accept you as you are and wants to encourage self-love, which again, totally fine. Whatever floats your boat. And Jamie's not out here hurting anybody, okay? I mean, some critics of this sort of a genre would say that it's a little bit like preying on somebody who's down and out, getting them to spend money on books or seminars that are supposed to turn on the self-love or unblock their mental barriers holding them back or change their lives through positivity and faith. That a lot of people argue that is taking advantage of someone, but that's not today's video. My point is, whether you're into Jamie's vibe or not, it is what it is. And it's relevant here because the Meg has clearly decided that she wants to be that, but less gooey about it. Meg's over the top, I'm a hugger, I'm so sweet and thoughtful, spreading joy and throwing flower sprinkles everywhere and doing the With Love Meghan show, being the perfect host and such a great friend. All of this, based on established patterns that we've seen with Meghan, we can only infer that all of this new Meg this year has been influenced by Jamie Kern Lima, who is her neighbor, and a very successful entrepreneur and mom who operates in this over-the-top saccharine way. Like, I don't mind people being super sweet and kind and being themselves. Like, duh, authenticity is great when it is real. But it does kind of feel put on to an extent because neither of these women have always sounded this way. Like once upon a time, Jamie sounded a little bit more normal, and sometimes Meghan does not talk this way. Sometimes she sounds different. I could never dedicate so much effort into just always talking in that sort of a tone of voice. Like I couldn't do that. I don't know about you. Anywho, now that we have dived perhaps a little too deeply into the origin story of Meghan's 2025 rebrand persona, that's really fake and lifted at least in part from Jamie, let's get into the first half of this podcast. Come back tomorrow for part 2 and an analysis of the impact of the gross misunderstanding of the temperature of Meghan's situation at the moment. Be sure you're subscribed so you do not miss tomorrow's video. But let's get back to the recycled material. This podcast includes so many sound bites we've heard from Meghan before. Let's run through them really quickly. Sometimes it's easier to tell your life story to a stranger on a plane than to someone you know. Remember that line? She said it about, I think it was Tyler Perry, along with a lot of other lies about her leaving the UK. She talks about that again. She talks about the crew of 80 filming for Netflix and why she chose not to do it in her own home. She repeats that. Again, we just heard that twice. We heard it on the Time 100 and we heard it in an interview. I think it was the People interview. Anyway, 3 times the charm, I guess. We hear once again how hard she works. She works so hard. She works so hard. And she knows everything about business now, don't you know? We also hear once again how Harry thinks Meghan is just like Diana. They're basically the same person. Another repeated tidbit that everyone in Meghan's life is so happy to see her being herself, just doing anything that is Meghan existing Her friends are so moved by this that they tell her how much joy it brings them to see her just being herself. Totally believable. And on repeat. We have heard this at least 3 other times. It really is striking how effortless the Meg is in her self-sabotage. Making herself unlikable is just like an instinct for her or something, or an impulse. I don't know, because this was nuts. One more side note before we get into this podcast. Because of Jamie Kern Lima's vibe, I do have to wonder if the Meg thought, here's a sucker. Here's somebody I can manipulate really easily and take advantage of. She's too soft. Use Jamie and her likely really loyal group of viewers to gain some followers, gain some supporters, because we know Meghan isn't super religious or really at all. Like, she used to act like going to church service with the royal family was a joke when she attended with the royals. And she and Harry never have spoken about going to church or spending a lot of time talking about faith or church in general. And when Jamie brings up faith, the Meg isn't like jumping on the bandwagon, but she's also not clearly like, well, I'm not in the same boat, but I respect your views or anything like that. She doesn't do that. She just kind of leaves that ambiguous. So it feels a little bit like she's trying to take advantage of Jamie and the people who listen to her. And that's all a bit manipulative. We know Meg is notorious for scheming and using people. And since Jamie does have a pretty loyal group of people who read her books and like her podcast, I think that there's a good argument that Meghan is using this friendship. But I had to laugh because when the podcast opened, Jamie led with, "Are you okay?" If you don't get the reference, it is the exact question that really kind of set Meghan's reputation onto the wrong track from the start. It was so many people's first real big red flag. And it was the first one for me personally that I was like, there is no arguing this or spinning this to make it okay. This is just straight from Meghan's mouth, not an acceptable thing to say. On she and Harry's tour of South Africa, Tom Bradby interviewed her at one point, and she was like standing outside of a women's shelter or something in an area where she was visiting people who were, living in less than ideal conditions and had been through challenging times. And Tom Bradby asked her how she was doing, if she was okay, and she was like, no, and no one's asked me, basically, is the summary. And because this was something straight from Meghan's mouth, it wasn't gossips, it wasn't leaks, it wasn't reports coming out in the news from sources close to the issues or anything like that. Like, all of those types of rumors have been going on since Meghan got engaged to Harry, that she was difficult and stuff like that. But all of that, still a lot of people felt like was kind of hearsay because it wasn't straight out of Meghan's mouth. Nobody had seen Meghan for themselves on camera doing something so egregious. Everybody felt that this was super inappropriate. The Meg said that nonsense, and it was wrong. Just straight up inexcusable. It was not okay what she did. And so it was kind of hilarious to me that Jamie began with, "Are you okay?" Like, it made me wonder if somebody like Jamie, who maybe is like, I had never heard of this podcast before. It's not my personal vibe. It felt like she maybe thought like, well, this is really important to Meghan, and to be a good friend to Meghan, we need to be asking if she's okay, like, really regularly. They spoke about carving out time for fun, and Meghan acts like she's so busy, of course. She's like, even when I have so many meetings, I said, yes, you have time to go see a Broadway show. You have time to go to New York. What? She flew across the country, okay? This is not quite the same thing as carving out time for fun in a relatable way. That is a trip. That is taking a trip to go see a Broadway show in New York City when you live in California. That is a big trip, too. That's a long flight. And somehow this segues into inspiring younger girls, which Jamie references letters that she's seen, and that she's seen this, which I don't believe, I don't understand. She's kind of trying to say that she's seen little girls come up to Meghan and been like, oh my God, it's you, and seen letters. I'm not sure what she means by letters. I'm assuming she means letters talking about how Meghan's inspiring somebody, but this segment was not only over the top, but it was confusingly vague because I still don't understand what's happening. What exactly have you seen, Jamie? What letters are you speaking of, Jamie? What is happening? Because why would Jamie see letters about Meghan? Like, I don't get it. Is she trying to say that Meghan brought her letters? Because those could be fakes. I know that sounds like a conspiracy theory, but you know, Meghan does stuff like that. Meghan has been outed to be the source for certain leaks to the media and telling people where she's going to be to try to get paparazzi pictures or helping somebody write a book. Meghan does these things and then claims that it's a source close to her when it's really just her. It was proven in court. Meghan had to apologize to the judge for saying that she never helped with a book, Finding Freedom, when she really had. You can look it up. It's true. She lied. She actually did help. But anyway, Meghan says that she takes this so seriously, being inspiring to young girls, being a role model. But I see zero role model energy here and even have a video about it, about how Meghan is not a good role model. And I will link it for you here and in the description box if I can remember. But really, objectively, is complaining and making everything someone else's fault and lying role model vibes? Like, just straight up, are those three things role model vibes? I don't think so. I certainly don't think so. And how does that sit with you? Like, especially on Jamie's podcast, we're talking about some people who are quite religious who follow her and listen to her podcast. Is that not problematic behavior, especially for religious crowds? How does Jamie justify this, is what I want to know. How does Jamie reconcile these conflicting concepts of putting someone on her platform and speaking with somebody who has lied and manipulated and complained about other people on TV and in public platforms, and those people having no route to defend themselves, even at least? How does Jamie reconcile giving a platform to somebody who does those things? Is that not considered like a sin or something, right? So that's something that I would really be curious to hear Jamie's rationalization of. But Meghan really pumps herself up here that she's super engaging with these people and it matters so much to her, don't you know? But this is the woman who in Australia complained out loud enough for people around her to hear and then report on it, that she and Harry should be getting paid to do walkabouts, to go around and shake hands with people who lined up to meet them because they're fans and think that they, you know, are special. Never mind the multi-million-dollar home and wedding and paid for lifestyle and staff. Forget all of that. They should have also been paid for greeting fans. Okay. Yeah, I'm sure she takes it really seriously. And this is also the person who, wherever she goes, she has an excessive amount of security and convoys blocking any plebs from getting near enough to share air with her. And there's never even anyone lining up to see her anyway, which makes the security look all the more silly and pointless because their arms are up, holding back no one. So pray tell, where are these people who have met her and had these moments where they're super inspired? There is no proof of this, and therefore I do not believe it. Remember the conference where we got this picture that was super duper strange of the tentacle moment just pawing at Jamie for no reason? Jamie claims that the internet got into a frenzy, that Meghan and Jamie got into a fight after that, and they didn't. Oh my God. But I never saw any of that. I really didn't. I remember seeing reports that a lot of people there were keeping their distance from Meghan, that people didn't really want to be photographed with her, or even just for the simple reason that she's currently bad branding to be associated with her. But also, she was really out of her league at that summit. But y'all let me know. This is the first time I ever heard that rumor. Did you ever hear a rumor that Meghan and Jamie had an argument after that? Because I never heard that, so I don't know where that's coming from. But we're going to get more into this interview tomorrow, as well as the sort of fallout from it, the consequences from it. Small dosage of headaches like these is really important, so be sure to come back tomorrow so you do not miss the juiciest details from this podcast. You guys will not believe what Meghan said. It will literally blow your mind. So subscribe and have a happy day. I will see you tomorrow. Bye!